The fall of Levi Strauss factories, living brand, dead factories. 1,100 people used to work here. Today, the sewing machines are silent. The cutting tables stand empty. The fabric has stopped flowing. This was Levi Strauss & Company's San Antonio plant, the place that made jeans for America, the building that employed generations of Mexican-American women, the factory that closed overnight. This is Levi Strauss, not the brand but the factories, the company that invented blue jeans, that clothed gold miners, cowboys, and rebels. That became synonymous with American culture itself. The brand lives on. The factories are dead. Can a company survive by killing the places that made it great? And the real question, what happens when an American icon abandons the workers who built it? If you're interested in stories about iconic American brands and the hidden cost of their survival, please subscribe, and tell me in the comments which other companies we should investigate. Your support helps us tell these stories. Thank you for being here. Let's begin. Part 1. Copper Rivets and Gold Rush Dreams, 1853 to 1945, San Francisco. The California Gold Rush brought thousands west, chasing dreams in the Sierra Nevada. Among them was Levi Strauss, a 24-year-old Bavarian immigrant with no interest in mining. He came to sell. Strauss opened a West Coast branch of his brother's New York dry goods business. He sold fabric, clothing, bedding, whatever the miners and settlers needed. The business prospered. By the 1860s, Levi Strauss & Company was a respected San Francisco merchant. But the fortune came from a letter. In 1872, Jacob Davis, a tailor in Reno, Nevada, wrote to Strauss with a proposition. Davis had been buying fabric from Strauss for years. He'd invented something. Work pants reinforced with copper rivets at stress points, pocket corners, button flies. The rivets kept the pants from tearing. Miners loved them. Demand exceeded what Davis could produce alone. Davis needed a partner. He lacked the $68 to file a patent. He asked Strauss to fund the patent in exchange for a partnership. Strauss saw the potential immediately. On May 20th, 1873, U.S. Patent Number 139,121 was granted to Jacob W. Davis and Levi Strauss & Company for improvement in fastening pocket openings. Blue jeans were born. Davis moved to San Francisco to manage production. At first, seamstresses worked from their homes. By the 1880s, Strauss had opened his own factory south of Market Street. The primary product, waist overalls, later called the 501, the company grew steadily. By 1902, when Levi Strauss died at 73, the business was worth approximately $30 million, over $800 million in today's money. He never married. He left the company to his 4 nephews. The Strauss family descendants, including the Haas family who married into the business, ran the company for decades. They maintained Strauss's values: quality products, fair wages, community support. In 1906, when the San Francisco earthquake destroyed the headquarters and factories, the company continued paying employees salaries and extended credit to wholesale customers. A new factory was built at 250 Valencia Street, a facility that would operate for nearly a century. Through the early 20th century, Levi's remained primarily workwear. Cowboys wore them. Laborers wore them. Farmers wore them. They were durable, affordable, and American-made. World War II changed everything. The military needed denim. Levi Strauss produced uniforms, work clothes, and utility garments for the war effort. When soldiers returned home, they kept wearing jeans. The association with rugged masculinity, military service, and American identity solidified. But the real transformation was waiting in the 1950s. Part 2. The American Uniform, 1946 to 1977. After the war, Levi Strauss made a crucial decision: abandon wholesaling, focus on manufacturing clothing under its own label. The bet paid off spectacularly. In 1954, the company introduced lighter blues, casual slacks expanding beyond denim workwear. Jeans with zipper flies arrived in 1955, targeting East Coast customers who found button flies old-fashioned. By 1960, Levi Strauss was selling 20 million pieces of clothing annually, half of them jeans. Then came the rebels. James Dean wore jeans in Rebel Without a Cause. Marlon Brando wore them in The Wild One. Suddenly, jeans weren't just workwear. They were rebellion, youth, freedom. When baby boomers adopted jeans as a uniform, demand exploded. The 1960s counterculture movement cemented jeans as a cultural statement. Campus protests, anti-war demonstrations, rock concerts. Everyone wore jeans. They symbolized rejection of conformity, embrace of authenticity. Levi's owned that market. The company's growth was staggering. In the mid-1960s, sales doubled in 3 years to $152 million by 1966. The company negotiated a $20 million loan to finance further expansion. New factories opened constantly. Demand still outstripped supply. In 1965, Levi Strauss established international divisions for Europe and Asia. The company went global. By 1971, when Levi Strauss sold stock to the public for the first time, it operated in 50 countries. The 1970s brought peak mania for denim. Levi's introduced bell-bottoms, corduroy, and polyester variations. Sales hit $2 billion in 1979. By 1977, Levi Strauss was the largest clothing manufacturer in the world. The Valencia Street factory in San Francisco opened in 1906, hummed with activity. Workers on assembly lines cut fabric, sewed seams, attached rivets, and finished jeans that would ship worldwide. Similar facilities operated across America: Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, North Carolina, Arkansas. These weren't sweatshops. Levi Strauss paid decent wages, provided benefits, and hired diverse workforces. In the 1960s, the company opened its first southern plant in Blackstone, Virginia, insisting to be integrated before federal desegregation laws required it. The company received awards for employee relations and community involvement. Manufacturing built communities. In San Antonio, Texas, Levi's employed over 1,100 workers at a plant producing dockers and jeans. $70 million worth annually. Mostly Mexican-American women, many working 20 or 30 years for the company. They earned between $9 and $12 per hour. Good wages for the region. They supported families, bought homes, sent children to college. The company seemed invincible, American-made, globally recognized, culturally dominant, financially robust. But the world was changing in ways Levi Strauss executives didn't see. Part 3. Missing the Signs, 1978 to 1996. The 1980s brought trouble. First, demand for denim stabilized. After decades of explosive growth, the market matured. Profits flattened. The company, now an industry behemoth, struggled to adapt. Second, competition intensified. In 1985, the Haas family staged a leveraged buyout, taking the company private again. They borrowed $1.6 billion to buy back shares from public stockholders. The debt burdened the company immediately. Third, fashion changed. Designer jeans emerged. Calvin Klein, Guess, Jordache. They cost more, fit tighter, and appealed to image-conscious consumers who found Levi's ordinary. At the same time, discount brands like Wrangler and Lee offered cheaper alternatives. Levi's was caught in the middle. The company responded with Dockers in 1986. Casual khaki pants targeting the business casual market. Dockers saved Levi's financially, becoming a massive hit especially in Europe. But the core jeans business was eroding. Through the early 1990s, Levi's maintained strong sales on Dockers' success. Revenue climbed from $4.9 billion in 1991 to a peak of $7.1 billion in 1996. The company appeared healthy. Behind the numbers, disaster was brewing. Levi's missed the baggy jeans trend of the mid-1990s. Teenagers wanted loose, oversized denim. Brands like JNCO, Kickwear, and even Gap captured that market. Levi's stuck with traditional cuts. The company also missed the premium denim trend. High-end brands like Seven for All Mankind, True Religion, and Diesel charged $200 or more for jeans with designer cachet. Fashion-conscious buyers abandoned Levi's as boring. Worse, Levi's lost touch with teenagers entirely. In surveys by Teenage Research Unlimited, Levi's ranked among teenagers' 3 favorite brands until 1997, when it tumbled to number 8. One researcher explained, "Everyone has Levi's, including their parents. Teenagers want to own their own brand, the newest and coolest." Market share collapsed. Levi's dominated nearly 50% of men's jeans in 1990. By 1997, that share had fallen to 26%. The company that invented jeans was losing to competitors on all sides. Then, inexplicably, in 1996, the very year of peak sales, CEO Robert Haas orchestrated another leveraged buyout. The family consolidated voting rights by repurchasing nearly 1/3 of shares, adding $3.3 billion in new debt. The timing was catastrophic. Just as the market turned against Levi's, the company saddled itself with crushing debt obligations. Management focused on debt repayment, while competitors stole customers. Sales began falling in 1997, first to $6.9 billion, then $6 billion in 1998, then further. The company had no choice. To cut costs and service debt, Levi Strauss began closing factories. Part 4. The shutdowns begin 1990 to 2004. January 1990. San Antonio, Texas. Workers at the Levi Strauss plant on South Zarzamora returned from Christmas break. They gathered on the factory floor for an announcement. Levi Strauss was closing the plant. Production would move to Costa Rica, where workers earned a few dollars per day. The San Antonio employees, 1,150 Mexican-American women, had 1 day's notice. No severance packages. No transition period. That morning, trucks began hauling machinery out of the building. Viola Casares and Petra Mata, longtime employees, were devastated. Casares later said, "For me right now, I feel like I'm in mourning. We used to be like a family." The women organized. They formed Fuerza Unida, United Force, and demanded better treatment. They picketed Levi's headquarters in San Francisco. They filed lawsuits. They staged hunger strikes. Casares fasted for 21 days, matching Gandhi's longest strike. A federal judge dismissed their discrimination lawsuit and fined their attorney $5,000 for filing a frivolous claim. But Fuerza Unida didn't stop. They protested for years, traveling worldwide to tell their story. Their efforts had impact. When Levi's closed subsequent plants, the company offered severance packages, 2 weeks' pay for every year of employment, enhanced pensions, subsidized medical coverage, and cash bonuses. Levi's publicly acknowledged that Fuerza Unida's protests influenced these decisions. But the women of Fuerza Unida, the 1990 workers, never received equivalent compensation. The closures accelerated. November 1997. 11 North American plants closed, 6,400 jobs eliminated. February 1999. Another 11 plants closed, 5,900 jobs cut, 30% of the North American workforce. September 1998. For plants in Belgium and France closed, 1,400 jobs lost, 20% of the European workforce. Each closure followed the same pattern. Management cited excess capacity, shifting consumer taste, and competitive pressure. Workers lost jobs. Communities suffered. Levi's kept shrinking American production while shifting manufacturing to contractors in Latin America and Asia. April 2002. The Valencia Street factory in San Francisco, the historic 1906 facility, the company's hometown symbol, closed permanently. 100 jobs ended. The worn-wood floors, thick fabric cutting blades, and heavy-duty sewing machines stood silent, covered in blue denim lint. The building needed $10 million in seismic retrofits. Levi's could no longer justify the expense. CEO Philip Marino admitted the emotional difficulty. "It's the original Levi plant, the original plant for jeans. It was hard in the sense that there are emotions associated with that history. The pure economics weren't so difficult to weigh." September 2003. Levi Strauss announced closure of all remaining U.S. and Canadian manufacturing plants. 2 facilities in San Antonio, 800 workers. 3 plants in Canada, 1,180 workers. Nearly 2,000 jobs eliminated. Company officials called it an unavoidable business decision. Jeff Beckman, company spokesman, explained, "We try to do our best to maintain manufacturing in the United States, but we have to be competitive to survive as a company." January 8, 2004, the last 2 U.S. plants closed. Sewing in San Antonio finished around Thanksgiving 2003. Laundering work, the final step giving jeans or finishes, ceased in December. 150 years of American jean manufacturing ended. Only 2 decades earlier, Levi Strauss operated 63 U.S. manufacturing plants. Now 0. The workforce collapsed. In 1996, Levi's employed over 37,000 people worldwide. By 2004, employment had fallen to 12,000, roughly half in the United States, mostly in design, sales, and distribution roles. Sales continued falling. $4.1 billion in 2003, $4 billion in 2004. The company that pioneered American denim was hemorrhaging revenue while closing the factories that built its reputation. Viola Casares, the Fuerza Unida organizer, reflected on the final closures. "They would rather have a job. For me right now, I feel like I'm in mourning. We used to be like a family. It's hard to believe that it's final." Part 5. The Living Ghost, 2004 present. The brand survived. The factories died. Walk through San Antonio's south side today. The old Levi's plant still stands, but it's not making jeans. Drive past North Carolina towns where factories once hummed. The buildings remain, repurposed, abandoned, or demolished. Visit the Valencia Street factory in San Francisco. It's been converted into retail and commercial space. The structure preserved as historic architecture, but no one sews jeans there. The blue-collar workers are gone. Yet Levi's jeans are everywhere. Department stores, boutiques, online retailers. The brand remains globally recognized. The red tab, the leather patch, the copper rivets, all still there. But check the label. Made in Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, Mexico, Sri Lanka, anywhere but America. The irony is brutal. Levi Strauss & Company markets itself as authentically American. The brand identity rests on American heritage, gold rush origins, cowboy mythology, rebel iconography. But the jeans that built that identity are no longer made by American workers in American factories. The economics are simple. Manufacturing overseas costs less. Contractors in developing countries pay workers a fraction of U.S. wages. Environmental and safety regulations are weaker or unenforced. Levi's can produce jeans cheaper and faster abroad. The company argues this is necessary for survival. Global competition forced every major apparel brand to offshore production. Companies that didn't close U.S. factories went bankrupt. Levi's made hard but unavoidable choices. Yet other companies found different paths. Some maintained limited domestic production for premium lines. Some invested in automation to reduce labor costs. Some cultivated made in USA as a selling point justifying higher prices. Levi's chose to abandon domestic manufacturing entirely, not gradually, not partially, but completely. The consequences rippled beyond workers. In San Antonio, the 1990 closure devastated the South Side economically. In textile towns across the South, Levi's closures removed stable employers, collapsing local tax bases and forcing workers into lower-wage service jobs or unemployment. Former employees described physical tolls. Years at sewing machines ruined eyesight, damaged hearing from machine noise, caused repetitive stress injuries. Petramata explained, "Don't realize the more you work, the more that you're sitting down, the more you stitch, you lose your eyes, you lose your ears, because the machines hurt you in the long term." Many workers were older women, over 50, with limited English proficiency and decades at Levi's. They struggled to find comparable employment. The severance packages, while better than the 1990 workers received, lasted months, not years. Some retrained, some retired early. Many never recovered financially. Meanwhile, Levi Strauss weathered crisis. By 2007, after years of decline, the company returned to profitability. In 2011, Levi's hired Chip Bergh as CEO. He modernized operations, focused on direct consumer sales, expanded overseas markets, and rebuilt the brand. Sales recovered modestly. In 2019, Levi Strauss went public again, raising over $620 million. The company emphasized its heritage, its authenticity, its commitment to social responsibility. But the factories are still dead. Today, Levi's operates in 110 countries. Products sell in approximately 50,000 retail locations worldwide, including 2,900 company-operated and franchise stores. The company employs thousands globally, in design studios, corporate offices, retail locations, and distribution centers. Just not in manufacturing. The brand lives. The products sell. The profits flow. But the blue-collar workers who built Levi Strauss are gone, replaced by contractors in countries where labor is cheap and protections are weak. Part 6. The Price of Survival. The story of Levi Strauss factories is not unique. It's the story of American manufacturing writ small: textiles, furniture, electronics, steel. Industries that once employed millions now employ thousands or hundreds. Production moved to countries with lower costs. Brands survived. Workers didn't. But Levi's case stings particularly because the brand identity depends on those very workers. Every marketing campaign invokes American heritage. Every advertisement suggests authenticity and craftsmanship. The red tab sewn on the pocket says Levi's. It doesn't say made in Bangladesh by workers earning $70 per month. This isn't to romanticize the past. Factory work was hard, sometimes dangerous, often repetitive. Not all factories paid well or treated workers fairly. American manufacturing had problems. But the factories provided something irreplaceable: stable employment, livable wages, benefits, and pathways to middle-class life for workers without college degrees. Women like those in San Antonio could support families, buy homes, retire with dignity. That's gone. Levi Strauss argues that closing factories allowed the company to survive, preserving brand value and remaining jobs. Without offshoring production, the company would have collapsed entirely, like so many competitors that went bankrupt. The counter-argument is simple. Perhaps collapse would have been preferable to betrayal. If a company can't sustain itself while providing decent wages to the workers who build it, does it deserve to survive? If survival requires abandoning the people who made your success possible, is that really success? These questions have no easy answers. Globalization and competitive pressure are real. Companies operate in market systems that punish higher costs. Consumers demand low prices. Investors demand returns. Governments refuse to protect domestic manufacturing through tariffs or subsidies. Within that system, Levi Strauss made rational decisions. Every closure was economically justified. Every shift to offshore production made financial sense. But rationality is a morality. Efficiency isn't justice. And survival built on others' sacrifice carries a cost that balance sheets never show. The women of Fuerza Unida understood this. They fought not because they expected to win, but because betrayal must be confronted. They organized, protested, and told their stories so that history would remember what Levi Strauss did and what it chose not to do. Today, Fuerza Unida operates as a nonprofit in San Antonio, continuing advocacy for garment workers and immigrant rights. The organization preserves a memory of those 1,150 women who lost their jobs in 1990. Their story is archived at the University of Texas at San Antonio, ensuring that future generations will know what happened when an American icon abandoned the workers who made it great. Ghosts in denim stand outside the old Levi Strauss plant in San Antonio. The building is still there, solid, functional, empty. The machinery is gone. The workers are gone. The blue denim lint has long since settled. But walk inside if you can. Feel the space where women sat at sewing machines for decades. Imagine the sound, dozens of machines running simultaneously. The hum of industrial production, the conversations in Spanish and English, the rhythm of work. Now listen to the silence. This is what remains when a brand survives its factories. An empty building, a historic marker, a non-profit organization fighting for workers who no longer have jobs to fight for. Levi Strauss & Company invented blue jeans. They clothed miners, cowboys, rebels, and dreamers. They built an American icon recognized worldwide. And then they closed every factory that made them. The brand lives. The factories are dead. The workers are forgotten. If you appreciated this investigation into American manufacturing and the hidden costs of globalization, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes these stories possible. Tell me in the comments which other iconic American brands we should investigate next. Nike and its offshore production? The decline of American-made furniture? The collapse of textile manufacturing in New England? Or perhaps something else? A brand whose survival came at costs we should examine. These stories matter not as nostalgia, but as warnings. They show what happens when profit becomes the only measure of success. They reveal the human costs of economic decisions. They ask uncomfortable questions about what we value and what we're willing to sacrifice. The jeans still exist. The people who made them don't. Not in those factories, not in those jobs, not with that dignity. That's the price of survival. That's the cost of keeping a brand alive. And that's why we remember the dead factories, even when a living brand would prefer we forget. Thank you for reading. I'll see you in the next investigation.